done this. But he can only do this out of our unawareness of that fact. So nation building is essentially to make us become first aware. And then, out of awareness, we become creative. Because now we begin to put something in our own mind. And this is personal. Because a lot of times we want to save the world by going out talking to people. And somehow we're going to unify all them. This sounds good. We're going to unify all of them and talk to them and bring them together and save the world. But it's your consciousness that will save the world, because if you going out to unify them and your predominant thought is disunity, then you have already failed before you got started. As diligent as you are, you will not be able to escape your own predominant thought. So when your consciousness is changed, then you will inevitably succeed at what you go after. Because the target is your own consciousness. But if you're seeing something other than what you want to create, that you're fighting against, you're holding that which you are against in place in your own consciousness. So that means we have to get into a deep meditation about what we want to induce. I'm going to go deeper if y'all will allow me to. When you are building in your consciousness, we begin now to think that there are many people with many different consciousnesses. And we want to make them conscious. That's unconscious of consciousness. Did y'all hear what I'm just saying? It's going to hurt some people. Because how they saw reality. If you're going out to make some people conscious, you're unconscious of consciousness. Because consciousness is one. There are no many consciousnesses. So there are no many different conscious people. Consciousness is one interactive dynamic of all minds being connected all at the same time. Y'all know what I'm saying? This is why you have telekinesis, clairvoyance, intuitions, premonitions. Able to read people's minds. Because mind is one. It's all one consciousness. If it wasn't, we would not be able to achieve effective communication. Effective communication is the fact that all the minds are on one accord so they can interact among one another. So our whole being, how we carry ourselves, how we move, everything about us is consciousness. And it's interactive consciousness. Why? Because it's phenomenon of which others can become conscious of. So your consciousness isn't just your mind. Your consciousness is your entire connectedness to all of the consciousnesses that exist. Did I lose y'all with that? So that means when you go out your door, you're interacting in consciousness. Everything you do is interacting in consciousness because you're in somebody's consciousness, what? Moving. Your physical existence is inside of somebody else's consciousness. That's heavy. Where do you exist? In somebody else's consciousness. How do you exist in somebody else's consciousness? How you have projected yourself from your own consciousness. This is heavy. So when you get into the consciousness that you want to create, you have already communicated with the minds of others. I've called people many times. People have showed up on the thought vibration I was on. I called them on the phone. I was like, you know, I just was on that. I was just talking about that. I was just building on that. Why? Because you're in consciousness. There may be spatial distance. But consciousness is always aware and always conscious all the time. All the time. So when we get into ourselves and work on ourselves, simultaneously while we are engaging in the process of working in others, then they are affected more powerfully. Because the consciousness that you want to get them to, you must be completely and absolutely steady. If it is attainable to get there, then you must be there in a solid state. Otherwise, the only thing that you can introduce them to is wavering consciousness. Did y'all hear what I just said? If you want to make them conscious, if there's a way, let me give you an example. We want to make them conscious of black divinity. Well, ask yourself, are you conscious of black divinity every moment of the day? Are you? So the question is not how do we make other people conscious of black divinity? How do we experience consciousness of black divinity through our interaction with others? Did y'all see how I flipped the question? We want to go out and make other people conscious, right? But the real question is how can we experience consciousness through our interaction with them? Totally different. One, you are trying to achieve something. The other, you are the manifestation of what you're trying to achieve. You're going to engage in creating it within your own mind through the experience. Two different things. My whole point in saying this is that when we really can see our consciousness, sit it up there right in front of us and look at it and ask ourselves, is that 100% black nationalism and black empowerment? Because everybody's looking at that television screen. That is your consciousness. We think people are not aware of our thoughts. That they only get what we're talking to them about. Bullshit. Let the white man tell you that. We think that they only understand the words that we are saying. Not true. Because you couldn't be sitting there slumped over and somebody asks, are you depressed? You ain't said nothing. But your being communicated more, right? Than words. So that means we are always in constant communication with others. So what are we communicating? Our stream of thoughts that are going through our heads. The next question is, what are our stream of thoughts? Because if we want to produce black nationalism, but our streams of thoughts are other than the constant, solid focus on that, then we are communicating everything else under the auspices of getting them to that point. That's deep. That takes some deep reflection. That takes some deep reflection. And if we're too much in worry in our own minds about them, those, and they and what they're doing, then our own mind is wavering. Because when they show up, what do they experience? Us in a state of worrying about them, those, and they. They don't experience pure black nationalism, pure black consciousness. Solid, structured knowingness. They don't experience that. They experience us worrying and in doubt. So that means wherever we want to get them to, we must be wholeheartedly there. But I want to tell you something. The process of getting wholeheartedly there is getting them there. Did y'all hear the point I'm making? When you engage upon the process of fully getting there yourself, you are communicating it to them. Somebody sent me a comment on my videos the other day. They said, whatever y'all say about this brother, he consistently put these videos up every week. He's consistent. You can count on it. These videos have been coming up. And I said, I may have thought that to putting my DVDs out, and this is how the ego operates, that I'm putting these DVDs out, I'm teaching something to people. But the internet is my digital mind. It's my consistent thought, digitized. Do you feel the point I'm making? So it's my mind of what I'm constantly thinking being encapsulated within the computer. So all I'm doing now on YouTube is my mind is being projected out through the internet to all of these people. What I'm constantly thinking. Did y'all hear what I'm just saying? So what's powerful about that is not what people are being taught, but what's constantly being thought. Y'all want to hear what I'm saying? It's not what's being taught, because you can be a teacher for 2 years and you can retire. But what you constantly think about, your constant thought builds momentum. It becomes solid as you keep in that meditation. Meditation is creation. You can't even murder somebody properly if it's not premeditated murder. This is how important meditation is. So and I used to always be with the Rastafarians. And they would always use that word. I don't like your meditation. Y'all ever heard him say that? I don't smoke weed with him because it's meditation. So every day, and the Eastern philosophers, the Hindus messed it up because we thinking when we're sitting in lotus, we're meditating. Right. We don't know that we're meditating all day, every day. Yeah. Thinking that we are somehow the victims of our minds, or we're just the experience of our minds. We don't realize that whatever's going on in our head, that is our meditation. And it's our job to make that meditation become black nationalism, black supremacy, black divinity, black love, and black empowerment. That must become our meditation. Because when we meditate on that, that's what we begin to see. We can't see nothing else but what we have meditated on. If you meditate on hatred, then you begin to hate others. If you meditate on deceptiveness, you meditate on fear, then you become schizophrenic. You don't trust anybody, but you think it's real. But what you're seeing is a product of your meditation. That's a lot of responsibility for people, because we want to think that the world out here is real, so we keep complaining about it. And I'm talking to universal mind now when I'm saying this. I'm actually putting this in consciousness. I'm putting this in consciousness. We keep worrying about the universe and what's going on out there. But what's going on in here, that's solid, will ultimately determine what's going on out there. Because when you move, what's in here moves. Y'all don't hear the point I'm making? Wherever you go, when you get there, it becomes what's in here. So what's in here counts. No matter who you with, no matter who you're among, no matter where you go. As soon as you get there, it'll automatically become in here. When you go to somebody's house, while you're there, it's in here, ain't it? So out there is in here. So when you solidify in here on black consciousness and black nationalism, then everywhere you go to begins to get absorbed, begins to be transformed. And that becomes your in here. Your in here is your temple. And your temple is your inner world, your inner thoughts, your inner being. It's where you meditate, where you pray. Every thought is a prayer. The Christians have messed us up because they think that you go and you get on your knees and hold your hands together that you're praying. You're praying all the time. You asking for something. You're praying. The fears about the things that we don't want, we're praying for those things to happen. Because if there was a God that could hear it, he would not disseminate. He would hear everything that you said and would have to deal with that. Is that right? Because if he really discriminated, and when I talk about God, I'm really just saying the ethers. I'm not talking about no mystery God. Right. That's just a metaphor for showing you how the atmosphere responds to the organic consciousness of living beings. We can call that God to sum it up for people who ain't that deep. We'll say, well, God, how will God respond? This is just an analogy. People don't realize God is just an analogy for understanding. It's their scientific explanation through theology. That's it. So when you're putting these thoughts out, that means that these units of energy, because that's all a thought is, it's a unit of energy. These units of energies that are information are now being communicated into an organic what? Atmosphere. So whatever you're thinking about is praying. And God, or the all, the omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent energy that is all, is receiving it. So every thought that we have is creating. And every thought that we're creating is opening us up and moving us into the now and the moment of what was being thought. Did y'all hear what I'm saying? So that means we're now giving energy to it, communicating through these units of energy. And now the universe is opening up and responding. And what we think we're thinking about, we're now moving into that reality.